McKenna Hadrich from Milan Park, and I am pleased to introduce Matt Levy of Shenandoah University. He will be presenting big ideas, tiny resources. We've allowed him to share his screen, so I will turn it over to him.
Well, thank you very much, McKenna. As she said, my name is Matt Levy. I am the Director for Campus Recreation and Wellness at Shenandoah University. I want to just introduce Amanda Levy, who is the Director of the Wilkins Athletics and Event Center. She's actually going to be monitoring the chat for me today so I can focus on the presentation. Amanda, formerly worked in recreation, is a great resource, can run our programming, happens to be my wife, so I have to say all those nice things. But if you have any questions throughout the presentation, if you put them in the chat, if she can't answer them, I will gladly do so. And my email is right underneath my picture, so if you have questions after the fact, feel free to email me. So without further ado, this is Big Ideas, Tiny Resources. So quick overview. I'm going to talk a little about getting creative with your resources, campus collaboration and how they can benefit a recreational program, and then utilizing student employees. Types of resources, we all know money. Money is definitely a resource. Money is something we all want more of. Facilities, some of us have state-of-the-art, amazing facilities. Others have nothing. So with the facilities, there's never enough of them. If you have that state-of-the-art facility, you want 2 of them. You want 3 of them. And then people, one thing I'm really going to stress with people is the importance of quality over quantity. In my opinion, you could have 100 people doing a job, but if 80 of them are just going through the motions and are terrible, there's a benefit to just selecting those top 20, those top 50, however large your program requires. Just for a little point of reference, Shenandoah University is a private institution. We have a total of 4,000 students, 2,000 are undergrad and 2,000 are grad students. And of those 4,000, they are spread across 3 different campuses. I'm sorry, 4 different campuses, technically, 3 different cities. So our programming gets a little quirky from time to time, trying to get everybody involved. So money, we all want more of it, obviously. How many people have actually heard people say in the recreation field, our program doesn't need any more funds? Our students like playing with old equipment. I love playing with a flat volleyball. It doesn't hurt as much. And this dollar store whistle is top notch. None of us want to hear that. We all want the Fox 40s. We all want the high quality equipment. We want the rocks for basketball. We want those $90 leather footballs for our flag football programs. We all need the money. We all want the money. For the majority of recreational programs, we'd all benefit from more money. I have yet to find a program that wouldn't. We all know this. The purpose of this presentation is not going to be to focus on the financial aspects. I'm going to talk a lot more about the other parts of the presentation. And with the financial aspects, if you've got some great ideas, if you are a revenue, required to generate revenue for your programming to exist, some of this might help, but we're really not going to focus a lot on the financial aspect of things. So what does your studio space look like? Do you have the state-of-the-art mirrors everywhere, nice flooring, plenty of room for everyone to participate? If you do, I'm a little envious, I'm a little jealous, and enjoy that space. For some of us, I know for us, our studio space looks a little bit more like this. So this is actually the room that we run the majority of our fitness classes in. It is set up as a conference-style room. Sometimes there's chairs, sometimes there's tables, sometimes there's both. If we run a 6 p.m. class, we have to have student staff in the building by 5:15 so that they can move tables and move chairs, and then they have to stay after in order to put the setup back the way it was. This is probably my least favorite part of what we have to do, but it is a necessary evil. Fortunately and unfortunately, some of our classes are actually getting too big for this room, so we've had to try to get creative with utilizing some of our auxiliary gym space. But there, we're fighting for resources as well. We're fighting for time. We're fighting against athletics practice space. We're fighting against academics. And, one of the things we're going to definitely highlight is we're going to talk about the importance of collaboration. With this being said, what I don't have pictured here is our actual fitness center. And I use the term fitness center very loosely. Our fitness center right now has about 9 pieces of cardio, 8 machines, 2 squat racks, a Smith machine, and a few dumbbells. We do not have any space in our fitness center for people to use mats. So if you want to use a mat in our fitness center, it overflows into the hallway. Typically between the hours of 4 and 6 p.m., you're weaving in and out of people out in our hallway on our main floor of our student center. This is a problem that we would love to be able to take care of. And honestly, with all of the COVID-19 stuff happening, it's probably only going to get worse. Because we're going to have to start spacing out equipment and looking at things along those lines. So the next thing I want to talk about is the photo here happens to be our auxiliary gym with one of our fitness classes. This was our dance party class. That class averages about 50 people. We were trying to squeeze it into that previous conference room and then realized we were violating FOIA code because of the way the room was set up. So we do get to use the gym. We have to be very strategic what nights we do it. We have to be very strategic on what times we do it. We have to be strategic on how loud the music's allowed to be because there's offices that are around the wall. So the communication with our athletics department, communication with our dance department, and the communication with our physical plant is key to us being able to utilize this extra space from time to time. Outdoor programs. So I've included 2 very important schools as far as this presentation goes. I'm sure we'd all love to run our programming every night in a facility this size like this. When I was at the University of Georgia, we got our one night a year in Sanford Stadium for our championships for intramural football. And that was like the highlight of the year for students, for staff. Honestly, for anyone involved, it was just a fun event. I'm hoping they're still doing that. I don't know, but I know when I left, they sure were. Stephanie's nodding her head, so I'm assuming it's still happening. She was there a little more recently than I was. And then at University of West Virginia, it's another amazing facility that I'm sure rec sports would love the opportunity to utilize on a regular basis. I don't know for a fact, but I'm just guessing, knowing D1, you guys probably aren't in there all that often. Is that accurate? Okay, another head nodding. Perfect. Again, a lot of us that don't have the state-of-the-art facilities, our outdoor complexes may look a little bit more like this. And honestly, some of us with the state-of-the-art facilities, sometimes you show up and that's what they look like as well. Fortunately, this is not what Shenandoah universities look like. We actually just have a grass field that we're lucky if football doesn't destroy it during their preseason. Lighting is also another issue. So on our campus, no lights, no games. We have our outdoor fields. We have 2 fields that are usable. We tried using those for 2 semesters when I got here. And we would offer programming from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And during those times, we actually had a 77% forfeit rate. So when I saw those numbers and ran those numbers, I knew something was wrong. I knew we could not operate that way. My staff was getting frustrated. The one team that would show up for their outdoor soccer games each week were getting frustrated, and I was losing participants because of it. So at that point, I realized it was time to play nice. It was time to go talk to who I needed to talk to and make sure that we could up our game a little bit. And in doing so, we had to get creative. So athletic facilities on most, if not all campuses, are probably your nicest facilities on campus. They're the ones that have the most attention paid for upkeep, very little, if any, open space on them. Recreational facilities, typically, if you're lucky, you get an old athletic field. They may have lights. Usually, my experience has been if they have lights, probably 50 to 60% of them work. There's usually minimal upkeep by the university. Sometimes it's the rec professionals out there, dragging a field or making sure that the plugs for the bases are put in so that they don't flood. And then you always have to compete with student groups. You get that group of people that want to go play soccer on your rec field on a Saturday afternoon. Are they going to destroy your field? Are they going to cause damage? Are they going to crack open some glass beer bottles and drop one at the end? So just really having to keep up with that. And these reasons are why collaboration is essential. We have found that since we started collaborating better with our athletics department and with our physical plant department, we've been able to utilize our spaces a lot more effectively and efficiently. And we've had the ability to really bring in higher quality programming. So sometimes in order to collaborate and to get your program up and running, sometimes you really just need to go away from the norm. On pretty much every campus I've worked on, typical intramural sports take place, Monday through Thursday, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., somewhere in that range. Occasionally you'll get some Sunday games in. Well, when I first got to Shenandoah, we weren't running any games on Sunday. And Shenandoah University does have a very strong Methodist affiliation, and I believe that was the reason we didn't run anything on Sundays. Well, so I asked some questions and said, why don't we? People were like, I don't know. We started running Sunday night sports because that is the only consistent time that athletics does not practice on our one lit turf field. So on our campus, there is literally one field with lights, and that is also the same field that has turf. So pretty much we can play any time, but athletics is on there usually 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then they're out there 3 p.m. till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So trying to find those times are nearly impossible. We started doing our Sunday night sports, Sunday night flag football. We started having to run our outdoor soccer season starting in November. So after our athletics teams typically didn't qualify for postseason or lost in their first round of postseason games, we would then be able to get on the turf more regularly. So we had to wait. So instead of running outdoor soccer in the nice weather when it's 60, 70 degrees during the day from 4 to 7 p.m. and having the 77% forfeits I spoke about, we now run it in early to late November when it's like 25 to 40 degrees out, and our forfeit numbers have substantially dropped. We might have a couple forfeits here and there when it's, in the teens, or when the wind chill is 10 degrees and it's raining out, things like that. But other than that, our numbers have increased substantially. We've run a lot more one-day events, and we've done those events in an effort to not monopolize a lot of people's time or commitment. And those can be as simple as a kickball tournament. We did a Monday night football event that was a kickball tournament, and we had, I believe, 9 teams that come out for that. And to put it in perspective, our largest sport is basketball, and this semester we had 17 teams, and that is the most teams we've ever had for any sport. So for 9 teams to come out for a kickball tournament, that was a huge, huge success. We ended up having to make our one-day tournament actually 2 days because of the number of teams, but that's a good problem to have. So the other thing that we started to look at is what events can we run that we don't need the athletic spaces for? What areas on our campus could we utilize that maybe are being underserved? Maybe they're not being used for those types of events that could be considered recreational programming. One of our residence halls has a sand volleyball court. Now, to call it a sand volleyball court, it's a court that has sand on it, and there is what was at one point a volleyball net. However, you put the right people on the right place, you can run sand volleyball. And that has been something that we try to run at the very beginning of our semester, trying to get people out of their residence halls while the weather is still somewhat nice. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, we ran into a lot of rain at the beginning of our semester, and it bumped our sand volleyball league back over a month. So by the time we got to the playoffs of sand volleyball, it was one of those like 30-degree nights, and nobody enjoys playing in the sand when it's that cold. So we've really made an effort to speed our season up in that capacity. Sundays, like I said, have turned into our most popular night. We don't have class conflicts. People are excited to be able to get out on the turf and play in the stadium under the lights. It really adds to the whole college experience for the students. So some ideas for programming when you're not on courts or fields. Gaming nights. I mean, esports is blowing up everywhere. It is one of those things that if you're not running it, you're probably falling behind a little bit. I'll be honest, we don't run esports. it started as a club in our department, and it blew up within a semester into an academic major. And now our campus has actually just completed its state-of-the-art esports arena that it's phenomenal. Like just walking in there, it's like if you were ever a video gamer, no matter what age you were at, you walk in there, you're like in heaven. I could just see, like I looked at it, I'm like, man, I would have loved to play Bond on those screens. Little 007, just dating myself a little bit. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Our intramural sports department collaborates with our game room for, believe it or not, an Uno tournament, which actually was very popular. It was one of those ideas a student came to me with, and I'm like, I don't know how that's going to work, but go with it. And it actually ended up being a lot of fun for the participants. The student enjoyed running it. We do our table tennis and pool tournaments through our game room as well. We also have started collaborating with Res Life because, like I said, the sand volleyball court is at one of the residential halls. And we also started running our Can Jam tournament as part of a back-to-school tailgate kickoff. So what we did this past year is had a DJ out at the quad area, threw some hot dogs on a grill, bought some glow-in-the-dark Can Jam stands and frisbees, and because the field is lit but not very well, so we were able to play Can Jam into the night, and we had, I think it was 19 teams come out and play for it, which most of them were just there for the free hot dogs and drinks, but it was still a lot of fun. The event lasted about 3 hours. The DJ added a lot to the event rather than just having a little sound cube. Having a DJ was huge. And then we run our cornhole tournaments. We typically run 2 a semester, and we try to run them at different venues on campus. So one will be run on like our track field, which is right behind our student center. And then we try to run one in the quad. So even if you're not participating, if you see people out there, it at least draws that interest. So curious if there's anything that I didn't mention that some of you might be doing on your campus. If you want to put it in the chat, that'd be great. If not, I will just simply move on to my next slide. But I definitely, doing a presentation through Zoom, it's a little more difficult. I love to get the group to engage, to interact a little bit. It's killing me not to be able to walk back and forth in front of the room because that's how I usually present. The fact that I haven't been sliding in my chair says a little bit right there. But let's see, sports trivia nights. So we have a group on our campus called Campus Activities Network. It is basically a group of students that is responsible for running programming. Like they do a bingo night, they do a sports trivia night, and they actually fall under our student engagement department as well. We've tried running sports trivia, but our campus does not get the following for sports trivia. We've had huge turnouts for Disney trivia and for Harry Potter trivia and for the Office trivia, but we cannot get sports trivia to catch on. Let's see, a one-day dodgeball tournament just for first years. That's actually a pretty cool idea. Let's see. The other thing we do during our welcome week actually is we have our own bubble soccer set, and we run bubble soccer during welcome week for our incoming freshmen. That has been, it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work to run bubble soccer if you've ever done it. But we bring that in, and then we try to run one tournament per semester of bubble soccer just to keep it fresh in people's minds. And what we'll do there is we usually do like 3-minute halves, and we just run it real quick because you get drained after. If you haven't been in one of the bubbles, try it. If you're in there for 3 to 5 minutes, you are spent. I don't care how good a shape you're in. But to do that for 3 or 4 periods, yeah, it's going to be a good workout. Let's see, we got Nerf tournaments. Okay. Is that like Nerf darts or Nerf football? McKenna? Darts. Really? Okay. I know my son would love that. Collaboration with athletics, water basketball, canoe battleship. Battleship is something I definitely miss from Georgia. We ran battleship. We used to run inner tube water polo down there as well. Currently, we don't have a pool on our campus. However, we do have a swimming club. We have a community rec center that's about a mile from our main campus, and they've worked out a real good deal with our swim club to let us practice there. So, all right. I'm going to move on. I appreciate it. Please keep putting your comments in the box. I appreciate that. It definitely helps out with this presentation. So the importance of being able to adapt. Before COVID-19, the reason when you would need to adapt is getting bumped from a facility, getting bumped from a space. You have to move venues based on other campus events, scheduling around games and practices. So if you want to use the turf, you can't schedule your games when there's a practice on the turf, things like that. And then talking with key personnel about what your program needs. So one of the things that I did not hesitate to do when I came to Shenandoah University was I set up a meeting with our AD. I set up a meeting with our VPs, trying to figure out how things were before, how they want to see things, and how I could help them, and also how they could help me. And now with COVID-19, I know there's a lot more adapting that needs to take place for a lot of people, virtually, and even more virtual. And believe it or not, a lot more virtual stuff is being asked of us. We're having to come up with safe social distance options. So how are we going to do different programming once things get back to the new norm? How are we going to run group fitness classes in a conference room that has a capacity of 30 people? Is it only going to be 6 people allowed in that class? So those are the things that a lot of us are going to have to be dealing with once we return from all this fun. And again, how are we going to run more virtual programming and even more virtual programming? And again, if you have some creative ideas, I'd love to see them in the chat. I'll come back to those. So one of the things that I was asked to do when all of the COVID-19 stuff started was come up with some kind of creative programming. For those of you that may or may not know me, I'm not the most creative person in the world. I'm really not. I like to do things. I like to make things happen. I love programming. I love special events. I am not the most creative person when it comes to that kind of thing. However, one of our counseling center employees, actually our assistant director for counseling, sent me an email and said, hey, we're having a huge mental health issue, which we're all aware of, and we need to find a way to keep students engaged. Have you considered doing a rock, paper, scissors tournament? And so with that suggestion, I kind of took it and ran with it. Decided we're going to do a virtual rock, paper, scissors tournament. And in order to make this happen, I went through our marketing department to market it. I went through VPs. I put it out there everywhere and anywhere that I could. So what we ended up happening, we had 45 people register for this virtual rock, paper, scissors tournament. And the reason I have the screenshot on here that I do is because I wanted to stress the importance of getting people involved. So on this screenshot alone, I have 3 of my student leaders. There are 6 university staff members, 1 director, our VP for student affairs, and most importantly, the president of our university. So the second one from the bottom on the left is Tracy Fitzsimmons. She is our president of our university. She was gung-ho. She was trash talking with the students, going at it. And the way we did it, to avoid the lag with the rock, paper, scissors, everyone was asked to hold up a piece of paper that they had pre-written that said rock, paper, scissors. So I was emceeing it. It would be rock, paper, scissors, shoot, and both people would put up the piece of paper. We did 3 out of 5, and it was actually a lot of fun. The people that were involved, they had fun with it. Even after people lost, they still stayed on. They were cheering people on, and it was really a great event. And we were, from start to finish, we were done in just about an hour. We ran a second one. We had a little less attended. It was a little less attended, and it ran about 30 to 40 minutes. It was just a great way to interact with students, faculty, staff. We had some alumni. The guy in the bottom corner with the dog is one of our alumni. We did prizes, and in order to encourage retention on our campus, we actually gave bookstore virtual gift cards. So we could sign up for a gift card using our bookstore's website. And that allowed us to send the prizes virtually. We didn't have to do anything else along those other than just put their name in and get them their prizes. We've done some other programming, some photo contests and whatnot, and we've used Amazon gift cards as prizes. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's been completely different too. If you had told me I was going to be running a rock, paper, scissors tournament through a computer, I would have laughed at you. I'm like, yeah, that's not something I want to do. But We all have to adapt. So now student staffing, and then this is something that is near and dear to my heart. I was very, very fortunate when I was a freshman and all the way up as an undergrad and in grad school. I had some great supervisors. I had a couple not so great, but I had some great supervisors. And one thing I want to stress is that adapting is not just for professional staff. Our students are having to adapt in every capacity of their lives. With a small school, which ours is, our small schools, we have to empower student leaders. I know at our campus, we have student leaders actually running department areas. So positions that on most campuses would be a professional position, maybe a GA position, but primarily a professional position. We're empowering our students and setting them up to run those programs. I have a student that in her junior year was my student director for fitness. She was overseeing a staff of 50 students and our main fitness center as a junior undergrad. If I did not have her doing what she did, I would have gone insane. I don't know how I would have been able to manage intramural sports, club sports. I served in our interim director role, so having to incorporate all of that, if I didn't have that student leader in that role, I would have been lost. We also have a student leader that is in charge of our personal training program. She oversees all of our training, all of our trainers, handles the scheduling of all of our clients with our trainers. Our outdoor rec department currently will be running this coming year with 3 student directors and no professional staff because of a hiring freeze on our campus. That includes, so they're going to be running trips, programming, setting up our schedule, training, handling our rental center, and that is all going to be student run. So when these students get out of college, whether they're going into outdoor rec or they're going into business, all of that is just going to set them up for success as they move on. Playing favorites. You always hear, oh, it's not a good idea to play favorites, or they got to do that because they're their favorite. You know what? Sometimes you need to play favorites. Sometimes if people become your favorites because they bust their butts and they're good workers, yeah, it's okay to play favorites. Now, if you play favorites for other reasons that are probably not as professional, I'd avoid that. But if you've got somebody that is trustworthy, dependable, shows leadership, shows that drive, and you are at a small school or you're short-staffed or under a hiring freeze, empower them. Put that person in that role that you need them to be in order to succeed. I'll be completely honest. I have handpicked my student leaders in just about all of my areas that I have right now, because if I didn't have those people that I could trust, that I knew that if I say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z done, it's going to get done. I have to have those people there. And anyone that knows me on a personal level knows that I'm pretty brutally blunt. It's one of the things I tell my staff when I first hire them. I'm like, look, I'm going to be the first one to tell you did something great. I'm going to be the first one to tell you if you screwed up. I need someone on my staff. I need my student leaders to be able to tell me, hey, Matt, you screwed up. Like, I need them to have that ability to interact with me on the same token so that they keep me in check as well. So what I really want to emphasize with this is put the best people in the best positions to make your department the best it can be. We're not all fortunate enough to have 18 professional staff members within our program. Some of us, I'm going to be a one-man show for the next year. And for me, that's a little scary because I now am overseeing outdoor recreation, which if anyone knows me, the only time I want to be outside is if I'm on a ball field. If I'm not on a ball field, I don't want to be out in nature. I don't want to be on the water. I want to either be inside or I want to be playing some ball. So, yeah, it's going to be fun, but I'm going to be heavily relying on my student directors who are interested in the field and have been trained properly to continue that process so that they can train the new employees to take their places when they graduate in May. So really just empowering them to make the program theirs, put their stamp on things. So another thing I'm a big fan of is being able to reward student leaders. So some of us have resources set aside for student staff development. Some of us are not fortunate enough to do that. Obviously, pay increases make everyone happy. If you have the ability to give pay increases, I don't know of a student anywhere that's like, no, I don't want more money for what I do. If you know that student, there's probably something going on there. or they just love their job, and those are students we love as well. But most people aren't going to turn down extra money. Conference attendance. So in this photo I have here, this was done a couple years ago. I actually brought a group to present at the Southeastern Fitness Expo. I believe it was at JMU. And the group of students included my student director for fitness centers, my student director for personal training, 3 of our SU Fit personal trainers, and one of my up-and-coming students who actually ended up being our first overall student director for fitness. 2 of the 3 trainers on here, we were actually able to reimburse them for their sitting fee for their national certification. As part of the work study program we have, all of our employees have to be work study, so they cannot be paid any different rate than anyone else. So we had certified personal trainers making $8 an hour, and in an effort to keep them around and to compensate them if they went through the training process and got certified, we then offered to reimburse their sitting fee, which they all love that idea. And again, giving students the opportunity to present at conferences, I don't think, and I'm thinking back, I don't think any of these people, except for the one who's going to be an athletic trainer, is getting into the field of fitness or personal training. And the opportunity to present has helped each one of them. This was done, like I said, 3 years ago. So having that on their resume, having that experience has definitely been beneficial for them. If you don't have those resources, which with the finances happening the way they are due to everything happening, this may be more of a reality now. Providing those leadership opportunities, providing students the opportunities to build their resumes, helping them, whether you have a career services on campus or your experience, helping them get those resumes to say more than I sat at a desk or I kept score. Having those resumes talk about customer service and leadership and the responsibilities that they have within their programs. If they're willing to take it, give them the added responsibilities. If you have students that want to do more, I encourage you to find a way to let them do more. And I can't emphasize enough, to me especially, the importance of empowering your students. So empowerment. Give student leaders that you trust power. Let them hire, train, schedule, fire employees when the situations arise. Obviously, be a resource for them. You don't want to have a student leader sitting in a meeting with one person and having to fire them on their 3rd week working. That's just setting them up for failure. If you have a new student leader, walk them through that process. So if you're hiring new people, bring them in, let them see you do it, so that the next wave of hiring you have to do, they're familiar with the process. With training, typically your student leaders are going to come from your student staff. So if you've got a intramural sports referee, their next progression may be an intramural supervisor or an intramural student director. If that's the case, help them learn. Let them work with your current staff to learn the goods and bads, the things that work well and don't, and to really make themselves stronger before they are set alone. Training, I can't emphasize enough how important training is when it comes to setting your student leaders up for success. Don't empower them to the point of breaking them. What I mean by that is don't overwhelm them. So I've had a couple times the past year where my student director for fitness came to me and said, Matt, this is too much. Overseeing 50 people, going to the 2 different campuses, it's too much for me right now. I've got midterms, I've got finals. And we have a good enough relationship where she came and told me that. We took some off her plate. We actually added a next tier down student leader that was able to take some of the on-site supervision off of her plate, and that helped her a ton. And the proud parent moment, she ended up with a 4.0 this semester and got into grad school. So now I have her as a GA for the next 3 years. So it's a win-win. And just no matter what happens, if you empower students, it's ultimately going to fall onto you. So if your student leader does something that they shouldn't or steps out of line, that's going to fall onto you with the university and with everyone else. So make sure you have their backs. Make sure that they know you have their backs. The best example is with intramural sports. You empower your referees to control the games. If a referee has to make a judgment call and ejects somebody or gives a red card or gives a yellow card, they need to know that when that person comes the next day to their boss's office, that you're going to have their back. 99% of the time, as long as they are acting within the realm of the game and in the rules, you're going to have their back. Now, if they do something that is out of line or not appropriate, you're going to do your best to defend them, but you also have to make sure that you're upholding your department and your policies and procedures. So, golden rule. We all know the golden rule. But what I'm going to say is treat your students and employees how you wish you were treated when you were in their shoes. If you were fortunate like I was, treat them how you were treated. Student employees, in my opinion, are the glue that holds our programs and facilities together. I am not the most technological savvy person. If I didn't have my students running our Instagram accounts, we wouldn't have them. I can get on Facebook. I can check my email. Zoom is a wonderful thing that I am unfortunately learning very, very quickly. Utilize the students. They're the ones that are going to get you more participants too. Word of mouth. We run a Shenandoah series of poker event on our campus. So we run 4 satellite tournaments and a final table. Our numbers are where they are for those events because of word of mouth. Our student employees show up and they bring a friend. The first year we ran it, it was only successful because we had 2 football players on staff that brought the whole, I think it was 1 week they had the entire offensive line there playing. Try to squeeze an offensive line around a poker table, it gets a little difficult. But we definitely had the numbers we needed to continue running it, and we continue to run it. It is a free event, completely free event. There is no money exchange whatsoever. I have to stress that as much as possible because we have to avoid the gambling restrictions. Students show up, they participate, they interact. We have football players interacting with conservatory students and whatnot. And it is one of the most fun events to be a part of because it brings out different people from different realms. Our esports program, they had 2 students there playing, actually ended up recruiting 2 other players for esports because they're sitting around a poker table just talking to each other and just having just good fun, harmless fun. And then with everything I've said, when resources are tight and you don't know what to do or how to do it, and if all else fails, sometimes a little child labor is what gets you through an event. So we ran a dash and die tournament, a dash and die event on our campus last summer, end of last year. And I had a good amount of staff. My kids were 6 years old at the time, and I'm like, well, let's let them throw some paint. So they came out, and they had the best time. They slapped hands with everybody. You can see in these pictures, people are just plain enjoying themselves. And they actually were in a spot on the course that I needed extra bodies. So my wife and my 2 kids were there throwing chalk at people, and it's been a year now, and they keep asking when the next time they get to do that is. My students now know my kids when they show up to campus. And on our campus, it's very family friendly. So we get to bring our kids on campus on a regular basis. So I'm not encouraging you to use child labor, but if you have the resources, I encourage you to use the resources you need to get the job done and really know that everybody has the same or has their own version of tight resources, whether it's monetary, whether it's facilities, whether it's students. Take full advantage of the high quality resources you have, and those will offset the shortcomings that you may have on your campus or within your programming. So with that, if there are any questions, I encourage you, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Feel free to put it in the chat. Either way, I'll do my best to answer questions. If anybody else has any creative virtual programming ideas and wants to put them in the chat, I'm sure the majority of the people on here could benefit from your great ideas. And my email address is on here if you have any specific questions about anything I spoke about today or how we do things on our campus or anything that happens, feel free to email me. I will say we have a couple ideas as far as virtual programming goes in the mix. One thing we utilized for a division programming was, I don't know if you've heard of Jackbox Games. There's actually a game on there that allows you to have up to 100 people. It's called Lie Swatter. Essentially, it's just they put crazy true false questions up on the board, and it's whoever hits it quickest gets more points. you get it right, you get points. So we did that. There was, I think, 16 of us within our division. I was asked to run like an icebreaker, and we were able to get through a round of that in 10 minutes. That is something that you do have to purchase, but it is a minimal cost. I think it was $12 for 6 different games. I would, again, thinking outside the box, not something that you would really think about, but definitely options with regards to the virtual programming that I'm sure a lot of us are going to be asked to come up with. So Stephanie asked, knowing that we rely on work-study students, how do we recruit student staff to apply for positions? So on our campus, every student is allotted a work study for up to 4 years. So it's not just federal work study, it's also institutional work study. What we do, honestly, is we try to sell the heck out of our positions. Refereeing, to be honest, is one of the few positions on our campus that is a work study position that is all work and no study. Most of the other positions on our campus, you at least have, I'd say about 50% of the time where you can sit and read your textbook or be on your computer. We get out at different orientation fairs. I'll be at an orientation fair wearing referee stripes. I've got students that help recruit. I get a lot of roommates. I get a lot of people that play their freshman year and then like, man, I need a work study job. I don't want to work in the dining hall anymore. So, if we're hard up for people, we send stuff out. Truthfully, I run with 15 intramural employees. So on a small school side, that's usable. I know if I had to do just work study when I was at Georgia, I don't know how we would have done it. Having over 100 employees, it just would not have worked. But each campus is different. So just get yourself out there. Like, show up and have your students pay them for an hour and tell them they need to wear their stripes to class. That'll get people's attention. That'll get people talking. Let's see. What form or method of advertising? Ben, what form of method or advertisement did you find most effective when recruiting for a program? If you're referring to recruiting staff, our financial aid office does a great job. I am actually the largest employer on our campus. So I oversee our intramural sports, our fitness, our game room, our outdoor recreation, all of those areas. So I oversee over 100 work study students on our campus alone. We market through our social media handles. Orientation. I'm out there at orientation. We have a lot of our employees are athletes. Our schedules are very, very flexible, so athletes are able to take advantage of that. As far as promoting our actual programs like intramural sports and whatnot, we do a lot of tabling. We try to get people out in the dining halls talking about intramural basketball and intramural flag football. Our outdoor rec people will set up a tent in the middle of the student center and just draw attention to themselves. And then we just put up market. We still do a lot of paper marketing. We do a lot of flyers around campus still. I know that's kind of on its way out, but we are still doing that. But our tabling in the student center, you typically will see 6 to 8 tables in the student center every time you walk in there during the regular week. And it's not all us, but that's where people do. So yeah. Any other questions?
Hey, Matt, I just wanted to add, previously, before I was here at West Virginia, when we would do tabling a lot at my previous institution, we also made a Plinko board. And so that was like a huge, for everyone else, I'm kind of asking on here, that was a huge way just to get people to come up to your table and talk to you. You either had, like Plinko board, you're giving some stuff away, but really people were just engaging with you and trying to talk to you about what's going on, and that just kind of spurred conversation. So it got a lot of non-traditional people to jump in and just learn more about what you had to offer, whether it was jobs or programs.
That's an awesome idea. Bring you back to the Bob Barker days. Or for those of you that are younger, Drew Carey. Let's see. Anything else? If not, I won't take up any more of your time today. I appreciate you all being patient and listening in. Feel free to check out the chat. And I will say, it it was just brought to my attention from Amanda saying, food and free T-shirts is the best way to get people to come to your table that we have found, to come to your event. We ran a club sports showcase as part of our homecoming week. We sold out. Well, not sold out. We didn't charge anything, but we were at capacity because we gave out free shirts to the first 250 that showed up. And that was the only way people could get their homecoming shirts that year. So they showed up and did that. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. So again, I appreciate y'all today, and I wish you all the best with everything going on. Have a great summer. And if you have any great virtual programming ideas, please feel free to share them. Thank you.